Boa noite desta Washington, que nunca pareceu tão isolada, onde os corredores do poder imperial ecoam com o som de um império descobrindo que suas ferramentas mais sofisticadas, military strikes precisos e artificial intelligence warfare podem simultaneamente falhar quando aplicadas contra adversários que evoluíram beyond imperial expectations. Estou observando algo que não acontecia desde os últimos dias do Império Romano: systematic failure across all instruments de imperial control quando tested against organized resistance que compreende how imperial power actually functions. Os ataques simultâneos contra Venezuela e Irã combined com artificial intelligence warfare contra independent analysts representam peak imperial capability aplicada através de maximum coordination e simultaneous failure dessa capability quando confronted com defensive sophistication que imperial planners não anticipated. É moment quando imperial power reveals its own limitations através da própria demonstration de sua maximum force. O que presenciamos não é simples tactical failure em specific operations. É strategic revelation que imperial power possui structural weaknesses que become apparent apenas quando tested against adversaries que possess sufficient sophistication para exploiting those weaknesses through coordinated resistance que imperial frameworks cannot comprehend or counter effectively. É Napoleão em Waterloo descobrindo que genius militar possesses limits quando confronted com opponents que compreende imperial strategic patterns e developed countermeasures específicos para imperial advantages que previously seemed invincible. Para compreendermos como simultaneous military e information warfare failures reveal fundamental imperial weaknesses, precisamos deconstruct imperial assumptions about power projection que proved incorrect quando tested against sophisticated resistance. Imperial planners assumed que combining kinetic strikes com AI information warfare would achieve strategic objectives através de overwhelming technological superiority. Instead, coordinated attacks revealed que technological superiority alone insufficient para achieving political objectives quando targets possess defensive sophistication combined com alternative partnership networks que provide redundant capabilities replacing whatever imperial attacks attempt para destroy. Venezuelan and Iranian resistance demonstrated que small and medium powers can achieve defensive adequacy against superpower attacks através de technological cooperation, intelligence sharing, economic alternatives e social resilience que imperial planners failed para anticipate or prepare countermeasures against. A strategic miscalculation que reveals imperial power based on outdated assumptions about adversary capabilities que evolved beyond imperial understanding durante years quando empire focused on maintaining superiority rather than understanding how adversaries adapted para imperial pressure. Imperial technological advantages proved less decisive que planners expected because targets developed countermeasures através de multipolar cooperation que provided alternative technologies, early warning systems, economic resources e information warfare defense que neutralized significant portions of the imperial attacks across multiple domains. American precision weapons degraded através de electronic warfare systems provided through Russian cooperation. Economic damage minimized através de alternative financing provided através de Chinese partnerships. Information warfare countered através de community verification networks developed através de Cuban expertise adapted para AI warfare era. A technological cooperation que enables smaller powers para achieving defensive adequacy against superior attacking forces através de shared capabilities rather que individual development que would require decades para achieving equivalent defensive capacity. Imperial information warfare failed because targets developed verification systems que could identify and counter AI-generated fake content through community-based networks que artificial intelligence cannot easily replicate or manipulate através de technological means alone. Artificial intelligence designed para exploiting individual psychological vulnerabilities proves less effective against collective verification networks que operate através de human social intelligence applied systematically rather que relying on individual media literacy que can be overwhelmed através de machine-generated content volume. Kimsenin konuşmadığı ama oyunu belirleyen detay ise şu: Imperial failure occurred not because the inadequate technological capabilities, but because the fundamental misunderstanding about how power functions in multipolar environment for targets possess alternatives que make imperial pressure tolerable rather que determinative. Imperial planners designed operations assuming targets would respond para pressure as isolated actors vulnerable para economic coercion, military intimidation, and information manipulation. Instead, targets responded como members the integrated resistance networks que could provide alternatives replacing whatever imperial pressure attempted para deny or destroy. Venezuelan resistance became Iranian resistance became multipolar resistance a través de automatic activation de support networks que operate semi-formal alliance obligations through voluntary cooperation entre sovereign partners sharing resources according para comparative advantages. A systematic support que makes imperial pressure ineffective para achieving political objectives because targets possess alternatives provided a través de partnerships que enable continued operations despite whatever damage imperial attacks achieve a través de technological superiority. Bu hikayenin en şaşırtıcı kısmına şimdi geliyoruz. Imperial failure triggered cascade effects throughout imperial power structure, which revealed systematic vulnerabilities across all domains the imperial control: military, economic, technological, informational, diplomatic, legal, cultural, social. Military effectiveness revealed as dependent and technological superiority que can be neutralized a través de defensive cooperation entre target nations and multipolar partners sharing countermeasure technologies who imperial forces non-developed adequate responses for during preparation phases. Economic pressure revealed as ineffective quando targets possess alternative financial systems, trade partners, technological resources que enable continued operations despite sanctions designed para creating shortages que could be exploited a través de political pressure. Information warfare revealed as vulnerable para community-based countermeasures que artificial intelligence cannot counter through technological means alone, requiring social responses que imperial forces cannot provide through technological solutions. A systematic failure que demonstrates imperial power limitations quando confronted with coordinated resistance, rather que isolated targets vulnerable para individual pressure campaigns designed para achieving political submission a través de technological, economic, military superiority. Congressional reactions revealed complete confusion among imperial policymakers about how para respond para systematic failure de multiple imperial tools quando applied simultaneously through coordinated operations designed para maximize strategic impact a través de overwhelming force application. Questioning the intelligence officials revealed analytical failures about adversary capabilities, defensive coordination, alternative resource networks, que enable resistance para imperial pressure through multipolar cooperation rather que individual resilience, que imperial analysts predicted would be inadequate for resisting maximum pressure. Administrative responses revealed bureaucratic inability para adapting imperial tools para multipolar resistance environment, where targets possess alternatives que make traditional imperial pressure campaigns ineffective para achieving strategic objectives a través de coercive diplomacy. A institutional failure que demonstrates imperial government limitations quando confronted with resistance patterns que imperial frameworks cannot comprehend, analyze, or counter through traditional tools designed para controlling isolated actors rather que integrated networks. Asıl kırılma noktası burada başlıyor. Imperial failure in Venezuela e Iran triggered broader imperial recognition that traditional tools de global control no longer function effectively against sophisticated adversaries que developed countermeasures a través de multipolar cooperation, enabling resistance para imperial pressure. Chinese economic partnerships enable any nation para resisting American economic pressure through alternative financing, trade routes, technological resources que bypass dollar-based international system controlled a través de American financial institutions. Russian military cooperation enables any nation para achieving defensive adequacy against American military pressure through technological assistance, early warning systems, electronic warfare capabilities que degrade effectiveness de precision weapons. Iranian sanctions busting expertise enables any nation para maintaining operations under maximum economic pressure through alternative systems que operate outside American-controlled international institutions. Cuban intelligence cooperation enables any nation para resisting information warfare through community verification networks que can identify e counter artificial intelligence manipulation através de human social networks. A multipolar capabilities menu que any nation can access para resisting imperial pressure, making imperial coercion ineffective para achieving political objectives against properly connected multipolar partners. Alliance structure implications demonstrate que NATO and other imperial alliance systems designed para projecting imperial power globally cannot function effectively quando facing coordinated multipolar resistance que provides targets como defensive alternatives. NATO expansion, que seemed como strategic advantage during unipolar era, now appears como strategic liability quando facing multipolar coordination que can retaliate against alliance members através de economic, technological, informational pressure que alliance mechanisms cannot effectively counter. Alliance obligations que seemed como strength quando facing isolated adversaries become vulnerabilities quando facing coordinated resistance que can target alliance weakest members através de pressure campaigns que alliance cannot prevent. A alliance system inadequacy que reveals imperial framework limitations quando tested against multipolar resistance rather que isolated targets que alliance systems designed para intimidating through collective pressure. Dollar system implications demonstrate que American financial dominance depends on global acceptance rather que technological enforcement capability quando major powers coordinate alternative systems que provide equivalent financial services a través de non-dollar denominated transactions. Chinese yuan, Russian ruble, Iranian rial, Venezuelan bolivar, increasingly used in bilateral trade agreements que bypass dollar system entirely, reducing American capacity para monitoring y disrupting international commerce a través de financial surveillance. BRICS payment systems, cryptocurrency alternatives, barter arrangements enable international commerce para operating outside American financial control, reducing effectiveness the sanctions que depend in dollar system dominance para achieving coercive objectives. A financial system evolution que demonstrates imperial economic tools becoming obsolete quando alternatives provide equivalent services through systems immune para American control or manipulation. Technological implications reveal que American technological advantages depend on controlling access para advanced technologies rather que possessing exclusive technological capabilities. Amicore competitors possess equivalent technological sophistication a través de independent development or cooperative sharing. Chinese manufacturing capability, Russian engineering expertise, Iranian innovation under pressure, Cuban adaptation techniques provide technological alternatives que enable any nation para achieving technological independence from American technological dependence. Technological cooperation entre multipolar partners enables shared development que matches or exceeds American technological capabilities a través de pooled resources rather que individual competition que favors countries come largest individual resource bases. A technological evolution que demonstrates imperial technological control becoming impossible quando adversaries possess cooperative capabilities para achieving technological adequacy a través de shared development rather que dependent relationships. Cultural implications demonstrate que American soft power depends on controlling media distribution rather que producing superior cultural content quando alternatives provide diverse perspectives que audiences prefer para monotonous imperial propaganda. Russian media networks, Chinese entertainment industry, Iranian cultural programs, Cuban educational cooperation provide cultural alternatives que offer different perspectives about global development, governance, social organization que audiences find more appealing to imperial cultural products. Cultural diversity enables populations para comparing imperial narratives como alternative perspectives, reducing effectiveness de imperial cultural dominance a través de monopoly control over information sources que previously prevented comparison como alternatives. A cultural competition que reveals imperial soft power inadequacy quando audiences possess access para alternatives que better reflect their interests, values, aspirations que imperial cultural products designed para promoting imperial rather que audience interests. International legal implications reveal que imperial actions violate international law a través de military aggression, economic coercion, information warfare, que international legal system lacks adequate mechanisms para addressing through existing institutional frameworks designed para different historical circumstances. United Nations, International Court de Justice, other international legal institutions lack enforcement capabilities para addressing imperial violations quando imperial power possesses veto authority over institutional responses designed para maintaining imperial immunity from legal accountability. Alternative legal frameworks developed através de multipolar cooperation provide legal alternatives que recognize sovereignty rights that imperial legal interpretations deny, através de exceptionalism, claims que exempt imperial power from legal obligations applied para other international actors. A legal system competition que demonstrates imperial legal dominance depends en institutional control, rather que legal legitimacy. Quando alternative frameworks provide more equitable legal interpretations que respect sovereignty equally, rather que privileging imperial interests, from Washington, que agora confronts systematic failure across all instruments de imperial control, imperial future appears fundamentally constrained przez multipolar resistance, que provides alternatives replacing whatever imperial pressure attempts para deny or destroy. Imperial power revelation como dependent and adversary isolation rather que imperial strength, that coordination entre adversaries provides alternatives que make imperial pressure tolerable rather que determinative para political decision-making. A imperial limitation discovery através de practical demonstration rather que theoretical analysis, revealing que imperial power effectiveness depends on preventing coordination rather que possessing superior capabilities. Imperial tools designed para controlling isolated actors prove inadequate para controlling coordinated networks que share resources enabling resistance para imperial pressure through mutual support rather que individual resilience. Future imperial effectiveness constrained przez multipolar coordination que provides automatic alternatives para whatever imperial pressure attempts para achieving political objectives através de coercive diplomacy designed para forcing submission através de superior force. Revolutionary resistance através de evolutionary coordination que preserves sovereignty while enabling collective defense against imperial pressure designed para eliminating sovereignty through dependency creation. Imperial learning curve, steeper que imperial adaptation capability. Because empire designed para controlling rather que understanding, exploitation, rather que cooperation, domination, rather que partnership with adversaries que evolve beyond imperial comprehension. A luta continua, mas balance shifted toward resistance through coordination rather que submission through isolation, making imperial victory impossible através de traditional tools inadequate para multipolar resistance era.